Chinese philosopher and father of Taoism Lao Tzu said, "Water is fluid, soft and yielding. For water will wear away rock which is rigid and cannot yield. What is soft is strong." This is the Producer's Lounge podcast. I'm your host, Richard Tucci, and on this week's episode we have producer Shelaagh Ferrell, who was one of the driving forces behind the independent movie One Love, starring Idris Elba, Shireen Anderson, and Kamani Marley, son of Bob Marley. And with her creative partner Yvonne Deutschman, they went on a multi-year journey to make a film which was an underdog and had every producer in England saying it was impossible. But with time, they wore away a rock that was strong and impenetrable. One Love, a touching Romeo and Juliet story set in Jamaica, is currently available on Redbox and will be available on pay-per-view, video on demand, and DVD later this year. For more information on this project, check out www.onelovefilm.com. And don't forget to also check out Shelagh's website, www.shelaghferrell.com. And like the Producer's Lounge on Facebook to keep up to date. And now, my dinner with British producer Shelaagh Ferrell.
I'm going to get the notes up, just in case. It's mainly names, do you know what I mean?
Hello.
Jasmine tea?
Jasmine tea?
That would be lovely. Thank you very, very much. Now, you've come here loads of times, so
Yeah.
what's your... What's your poison this week, say in England?
My poison is generally just the fried rice with egg and shrimp, but I may get a curry too, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I was thinking about going for a Thai green curry. Maybe just steamed rice.
I'm just a really picky eater, so I don't
Yeah, you told me that before.
Yeah.
That's why I was really surprised you went for Thai.
Oh yeah.
You like Thai?
I like some Thai, yeah.
Yeah. I thought, oh, that's a bit adventurous. Too cheap. I may forget their surnames, you know, as it was crewed up between Norway, Britain, Jamaica, and we've even got a New Zealander here, so...
Now let's go back. Let's tell the epic story that is One Love. I'm going to do a James Lipton on you. Cheers.
Cheers.
But then when did you decide you wanted to get into entertainment?
Prior to that, something more extraordinary happened. At the age of 10, two things had happened. I had won a big dance competition here in London. It was the Janet Cram Award, and it was quite a big, important competition. I hadn't won it, but I'd come runner-up to the dance. And my parents had a decision to make because I was being offered scholarships to attend dance schools if I wanted to go to boarding schools. But at the same time, I'd been offered a bursary to attend an exclusive private boarding school in England called Millfield. And that was to change my life. And I remember my mother saying, you know, if you go to Milford, it's not going to be a dance. You're not going to be dancing all the time. But I remember going to Millfield for for the interview and just thinking this is the most amazing place ever. Millfield is very, how would you say it? It's a very special school in the sense that it's a school that's founded on a particular philosophy. Boss Meyer, who founded Millfield, he did it under a philosophy. He believed that every single child had a gift. It wasn't necessarily academic. So the principle of Millfield was that we will find what that gift of that child is. So if you were a fantastic tiddlywinks player, then you were going to be the best tiddlywinks player in the world. And if you're a good sports person, and they will focus on the positive and what you do well. And it was a very expensive school because it had amazing facilities. In fact, it was the second most expensive school in the world.
Whoa.
So it was very significant for someone like myself to go there because my parents didn't have that kind of money. If it hadn't been for the bursary and hadn't been for the fact that both my parents worked, there's no way I would have enjoyed such a privileged childhood in this extraordinary school. And therefore I was among some of the world's wealthiest children of some of the world's wealthiest people and royalties and things like that. It was really quite amazing.
Who's your favorite teacher?
Oh, my favorite teacher, without doubt. I love biology, Mr. Parker. Ironically, I ended up in the arts, but I was actually dyslexic and I didn't like English.
I never knew that.
No. Well, you're going to look out of me. These are truths. I didn't like English at all. I would get really bad grades, and I didn't understand why. In my head, I thought I would write a really good essay, and my teacher would be saying to me, "This doesn't make sense," and I couldn't understand why it wasn't making sense, because part of dyslexia is I liken it to having a stutter. In your head, you actually hear things logically. Dyslexia means word blindness. What can happen with dyslexia is what you think you've written down, you haven't. But it's more severe than just missing out a word. You may miss out whole paragraphs and chunks. So to the reader, they're reading stuff that's just not making sense at all. And you come back and say, but it made sense to me in my head. And then they'll say, we don't understand it because you speak really eloquently. If your writing is not making sense and you're speaking really eloquently. Funnily enough, I didn't enjoy English and anything to do with that department. It was a bit of a dread for me. But I loved the science department. I loved biology. And I actually was doing quite well in biology. And when I was leaving school, I knew I would do one of two things. If I was going to go to university, I didn't want to study drama. I didn't want to academically study the arts. I wanted to vocationally study the arts or academically study biology. And so I had to make the choice, go to university and study academically biology, and I knew that that's all I wanted to study would be biology, or vocationally go to drama school and train vocationally to act in musical theatre, and I chose the latter. Well, my thing is, a lot of people turn their nose up at the musical theatre until they've done it, and then when they've done it, they appreciate the skill involved. You know. Sorry, I had to get that in.
So let's get into One Love. When did you decide you wanted to produce that? And how did that come about?
One Love, my business partner Yvonne Deutschman, it was actually her idea, her concept. She had this concept about doing a film about a girl, a young Christian girl who falls in love with a Rastafarian songwriter in the 70s. And Yvonne was actually always a filmmaker. In the 70s, nobody was interested in doing a project which had black protagonists, basically.
Same as today.
Same as today. But worse. She tried to get interest for this project. You know, they were going to be sort of Caribbean leads, and she could not. And the only way she could get the project off after failing to attract interest was to do it as a theatre piece. And it was done under the name of Freedom City. At the time she lived in Bristol, and it toured Bristol, it toured I think London, and it even went to Jamaica as what they call a community arts project. So it's semi-professional. I don't think it's professional, but it's a community arts project. But she always believed her instinct that this would make a good film. Jump 20 years now, and it's 20 years. Basically, we met in a jazz bar and we got talking. She was talking about another project she had, and I kind of gave her some assistance with that, and we exchanged numbers. And then I got a phone call from her, and she said, "Thank you very much for your last suggestion. I want to tell you that it worked out. I actually have this other project. And she pitched it to me. She said, it's the story about a girl from the Pentecostal church. She falls in love with a Rastafarian songwriter. And I got terribly excited by this, until she said it was set in Bristol. And then suddenly I wasn't excited because I actually didn't think, my immediate reaction was, so what? And the reason was this. I mean, I had actually, by that time, I had been making my first trips to Jamaica and getting to know my own family. And I could relate to the story. My cousin, my dear cousin, who it's like an uncle, I mean he's of uncle age, he was a pastor, and I used to stay on the Baptist Mounts when I went to Jamaica. I had other cousins who were Rastas, and I saw how never the twain really met, and the real segregation. Not only that, I thought in Jamaica you have, I saw the landscape, the beauty, the fact that being a Rasta in Jamaica was not simply a fashion statement, which it can be mistaken to be in, like here in America or in Britain. But in Jamaica it was a real way of life, and that included living in the hills and everything. So immediately my response was, why don't we set this in Jamaica? And then, to my surprise, Yvonne, who is Polish, Jewish, Canadian, turns around and says, why didn't I think of that? You do know I used to live in Jamaica. As if I would guess. There was no way I was going to guess that she spent her childhood in Jamaica. And then she told me that she spent 10 years of her life in Jamaica. This was fantastic. I didn't have to explain anything. The minute I said, why don't we set this in Jamaica, she got it. She said, why didn't I think of this? Why? And then immediately asked me whether I would come on board with this project. And I said yes, without thinking. I wasn't even thinking. I just said yes.
You really took the bull by the horns, and you flew to Jamaica and contacted the writer there, and I know a lot in LA. I know a lot of people who have part of the puzzle but don't do the legwork to bring the whole thing together, and they're just kind of, they bring a little bit of money, or they are a manager of an actor and they get the script to them and pitch the actor. But you really, you championed this thing over a long period of time. So
well,
what year was this that you first got involved?
Well, I must have met Yvonne about 99, I think it was, when I first met her in the jazz bar. And we couldn't do anything, and we had a couple of meetings, and we knew, the first thing to recognize, we knew this project was going to be tough. Let's go through why it's going to be tough. We've got a project that's going to have a virtually majority ethnic cast. Let's be frank about it. It's going to be set in Jamaica. It's not going to be set in America. It's not likely to have any names, known A-list names. I mean, every reason not to do this project. It's going to be set in Jamaica, nobody's going to want to insure it. It's not set in America, nobody's going to want to buy it. It doesn't have any A-list names, nobody's going to want to buy it. I mean, it had so many things negative going about it. So it was a case of, hey, cool, let's do it. This is the project we want to do, the challenge one, And the first thing is to recognize how we're going to turn the negatives into positives. And one of the decisions was we would need to start again with the script, because we now had a stage play. And it was 20 years old in effect. I felt that we needed a screenplay. And to get a screenplay, we needed a screenwriter, somebody who knew about writing for film, who could bring in the depth of the film. Yvonne is a very talented director in her own right, and I'm a very talented actress, and though I say it myself. But I thought together we were going to be first-time producers. there was no way we would get this project off the ground if we then decided we wanted to act. And I thought we'd be here till we're grey. I believed that we should stick as producers, because as producers we were the visionaries, and we would have control. That meant giving up my desire to act in it, really, and Yvonne's desire to direct, and that was very hard. Very, very difficult decision, especially as a director. When you're a director and you're in that is a very, very tough call.
Did you come to that decision over like a week or a weekend, or was it like
I
long
think
months?
when we were when I decided to come on board, my instincts were that if this is going to happen, these decisions, we will need to agree these things. Because otherwise I didn't want to get involved on something that wasn't going to happen, and I had a clear vision that it could happen, but these were some of the Yvonne was very amenable. She'd been trying for 20 years after all, and I think she was grateful to just have just a new pair of eyes that could take the project and see it differently. So then we sat down and thought, we do not have many options here. We need a writer, a screenwriter, who can write something that's set in Jamaica, authentically. So we looked at the most successful film to come out of Jamaica, and that was Trevor Rowe. That was The Harder They Come. So immediately, okay, we'll get Trevor Rowe, and he will be our writer. The fact that we had no into Trevor Rowe, we didn't know who he was immaterial. We had just made our decisions. We got our wish list. We had Trevor Rowe. If we can get him, he'll be the writer. Then Yvonne had already got an idea on who she wanted to be the director. She had seen a Jamaican movie called Dancehall Queen that had come out of Jamaica. I hadn't seen it at the time. And she was on the case. She said, listen, there are these directors. They've made this film called Dancehall Queen. It would be really good if we can get those directors, because obviously they know Jamaica. And we thought, what are we going to do about the fact that we haven't got a star? We thought, well, Bob Marley is the biggest name to come out of Jamaica. I wonder if he happens to have any children who might be able to act. We thought, great, well, we'll get Marley to be the name. And we thought, well, what about the little girl that had been in Dancehall Queen? She was like little. We thought, well, how old might she be now? Maybe we could get her to be the lead.
Now you're going down these lists of decisions. One of the things I find interesting when you talk about these stories is, well, I worked for Penny Marshall, and then I left her. Like my story is, I worked for Penny Marshall, and then I left her, and I went into being an assistant to an executive producer, and he promoted me to the associate producer on the second season of the show, and then I did 6 or 7. That story takes, of course, over 3 years.
Yeah.
How long did all these decisions take place? Was it one afternoon of brainstorming, or was it?
Well, these decisions were probably one afternoon of brainstorming.
Oh, okay.
In fact, I do remember. It was soon after Christmas, I think, when Yvonne rang me up again after I'd said I'd do it, and she said, listen, I think we should get started on this. We didn't live that far away from each other in London. I remember going over to her flat. We sat in her bed, and we started to do our decisions. Now, the extraordinary thing about what happens next is we have this wish list. We have no into Marley. We don't know anybody who knows Trevor Rowe, and we have no one who knows the directors. So it's like, yeah, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, and now what? For those of us that have a faith and believe that there's a higher power, some extraordinary things then happened. We have this initial meeting, and then there's a hiatus, in which I continue with my life back in the theatre. And I'm doing a musical. The opening night happened, and as I was coming off the set, as I was walking out, I had to go through sort of the crowds to get backstage, and it had been a huge success. The crowds, sort of standing ovation. John Adams ran onto the stage, hugged us all, thought we'd done his work proud. We were all really happy that we hadn't let him down. as I went through the crowd, I felt a tap on my shoulder, and I turned round, and it was a young man who I didn't know. And he told me, he said, "Oh, I thought you were really brilliant there." He said, he introduced himself, and he said, "I want to be your fan." And I didn't know what to make of that. I thought it was a bit strange. I was a jobbing actress. I wasn't a star in England. I was just a jobbing working actress, so I wasn't used to having fans particularly, So he said, "I want to be your fan." He said, "Seriously, if you give me your number and everything," he said, "you tell me what you're doing and I'm going to come and support it. I just want to support everything that you're doing."
Show us on the doll where he touched you.
I know, it was very, very weird. Anyway, for some reason, I was foolish enough to actually give him my email and probably my phone number naively, and he gave me his, in all fairness, and he told me that he worked in art galleries. He was a dealer, an art dealer. And he said, I can introduce you to loads of people. He said, I can take you to galleries and I can introduce you to people. So I didn't know whether he was complete fruitcake, nutcake, or what. And subsequently, he would ring me up, invite me to things, and very often I would say no, make up some excuse. And then one day, I felt really guilty saying no all the time. And he invited me to an art exhibition, and I thought, well, what harm could that do? I mean, it's a public place. It was going to be right in Bond Street. He wasn't telling me to go to his home. It was. I love looking at art, so I thought, okay, come on, just say yes. I arrive at this art exhibition, and this is about maybe 9 months or a year, 9 months after my first brainstorming session. As you know, as a filmmaker, how do these things happen? So it's about 9 months later. And he knows a lot of people, and he introduced me to this girl. Oh, this is my friend. I can't remember her name, but let's just use Susan. This is my friend Susan. And this girl, Susan, had this guy who was her friend. So my fan and this Susan, whatever her name is, they're chatting away, leaving me and this other guy standing like lemons. So of course I take the plunge and say, "Hi, my name is Sheila, who are you, what do you do?" And he said, "Hi," he said, "My name's Rick, I'm a director." And I said, "Oh, would any films that you would know of?" And he said, "Oh no," he said, I don't think you would know." He said, "I directed a little Jamaican movie." And I immediately turned around and went, "Oh my God." I said, "You're Rick Elgert. I have been looking for you." And he looks at me like I'm a complete nutter.
Oh my God.
And I'm almost shaking. "Oh my God, you are Rick Elba. I've been looking for you." That's what I say to him. And he's like, just stop. "You've been looking for me? What?" And all I know is I don't know what to do. I am now with the director we want to direct my film. I have no script. I don't even know if I've got a pen. I just think, what do I do? What do I do? Well, look, I'm probably on a napkin. I don't know what. I said, "I need to have your number." I said, "Listen, trust me. I will be back in contact with you. It may be 6 months, it may be a year.
Thank you.
But just don't forget this meeting. I am going to be back in contact with you. I will be back in contact with you. Just give me your number. Just here it is." And it was just the most crazy thing. So I then contacted Ron and said, "You're not going to believe what's happened to me. But I've just got the director, in this most bizarre."
Oh my God, that is an amazing story.
It's the truth. As God is my witness, that is the truth. And so in a nutshell, in time, you go through the process. The important thing is we had a connection. And the wonderful thing is we had a connection. I didn't have to go through an agent and get who do you want, I didn't have to go through any of the rebuffs that you get or proving it. It's just, what a wonderful meeting, a social encounter like that, where you're speaking just one-on-one and wow. We say, and later on we had a meeting and explained we'd seen his film, and we had a more official meeting later, when we got our act together and had a little bit more. So that was wonderful. So that's how we get one piece of the puzzle. Now once we've got one piece of the puzzle, everything's wonderful, because now we have somebody on board. It's not just us. We now have to get the writers. Now, I went to Jamaica. You've got to remember, Yvonne and I both have links in Jamaica, so we loved any excuse to go to Jamaica. Any excuse to go to Jamaica.
Well, considering the footage from the movie, I would love any excuse to go to Jamaica too. So.
But I believe this time we didn't have much money. You've got to remember, we're producers. This is unheard of in America. We're producers with zero money. We're not from rich families.
I assure you, it's not unheard of.
Okay. I had a memorial to go to. So, in Jamaica, my mother, a memorial of a relative that my mother wanted to go to. And thought, well, maybe if I go to Jamaica, maybe I could try and track down Trevor Rowe.
I love how you open up with, maybe I can track him down, like there's guns and spies involved.
Oh, no. No guns, but I didn't know. No. Now we're getting a little bit of help, because Rick has worked in Jamaica. So we're now sharing our ideas, and he's very for this. You remember, we now have a director on board before we have a script. And he is very supportive, and he can help because he has contacts in Jamaica. He's done a movie out there. So he suggests to us a line producer and says, look, when you go to Jamaica, contact this guy, and he should be able to get you to everybody else, my family are from the north of the island of Jamaica, so I would have to get to Kingston somehow. And by this time, Yvonne and myself, we've drafted a synopsis of the story. So now this is an interesting thing for filmmakers. Often people ask me, what does a producer do? What exactly do you do? Well, producers have to pitch ideas, but sometimes in some events you may stumble across a script. You've read a script, you like it. But if you're a creative producer, you may have an idea and you need the script to be written, but you still have a vision. So in fact, as a producer, you are coming up with a synopsis of a story that hasn't been written yet. So it's actually you doing it. With Yvonne and ourselves, we're now, if you like, sketching out the storyline, and we have to persuade a writer to write that storyline, and that's an interesting concept.
For free or for dirt cheap?
Well, I will come to that in a minute. Because writers always have projects themselves, and when they see a producer comes to them, then inevitably they're trying to persuade you to do their project. Wouldn't it be easier if we just do this project? We have the script, it's written already, and you have no money. There's an element of that. So we had, before we went to Jamaica, we had done some preparation and got, our little synopsis and our pitch document together. And I got to Jamaica, And this is where it all gets exciting. So I go to the Jamaican Film Commission, and I say I'm looking for Trevor Rowan. And there had been a spate of British productions in Jamaica which had focused on the negative side, the guns, the gangsters, and in fact the Jamaicans were not happy. And I remember the lady at the commission saying to me, if you think you're going to come to England and drag my crews down to the ghettos, she said, and diss Jamaica, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. We're not going to help you. And it was a case of me going, no, I come in peace. I come in peace. I come with nice story. I come with nice story, nice script. Kind of a case of that. And I had to persuade her that we wanted to do this beautiful love story. But I managed to do that. And I said, we wanted Trevor Rowan to write it. And then she kind of warmed. I said, I'm wondering whether you'd have how do I get in contact with Trevor Rowan? So I'm sitting in the Jamaica High Commission, in the High Commission Film Department, talking to this lady, and trying to get hold of Trevor Rowan. He looks at me, and all of a sudden she picks up the phone. She starts dialing, and then I hear, Miss Aron. Just picks up the phone. Miss Aron, I have a lady here from England, says she wants you to write a script for her. As I'm sitting there, I go, wow, she's got the hotline to Miss Aron. Dials casually, Miss Aron, I have a lady here from England, says she wants you to write a script. She said, what's it about? And obviously he said, to her where she's staying, and he must have been expecting me to say the Hilton Hotel, so the big she said, where are you staying? And I said, I've got no, where are you staying? And I said, I haven't got anywhere to stay. She hasn't got anywhere to stay. So he wants to speak to me. The first thing I hear on the other end of the line is, this is now the first time I'm speaking to the writer I want to do my script, the legendary Trevor Rowan, who wrote The Harder They Come, the late Trevor D. Rowan. And he says to me, you come to Kingston, Jamaica, all the way from England, with no place to stay. And I said, yes. I said, I've come looking for you. I said, I've come looking. Well, you must stay here, he said to me. So he tells me, instructs me to hand the phone back to the lady at Jamaica, and she must put me in a taxi and send me over to Miss Aron. I don't know who I'm going to be faced with. I don't know what Miss Aron looks like. I know he wrote The Harder They Come. That's all. I have no picture of him. I just know things seem to be going very well.
Apparently. So you met in 1999, and you jumped onto this project then, and then where are we now when you're meeting Trevor?
1999. When's the memorial? Well, it's not long after the meeting with Rick, the kind of official meeting with Rick. So maybe it's 2000 perhaps, the following year, and it would be before Christmas.
And this was Trevor's last project before he passed on?
It was, yes. So I meet with Trevor, and I think he thinks I'm a complete fool. I think he thought I was younger than expected, when he sees me. And all the things happen, in later years, he said to me, he referred to the room as my room. Anytime we became friends, of course, later. And when I would stay with him, he would always say, but that is your room, Sheila. the guest room where I used to stay. And he sort of wanted me to do a project that he had and asked me questions, what was the budget and everything. But I remember asking him, I never wanted to offend a writer. We didn't expect him to write for no money. We never ever intended to even ask him to write for no money. I asked him, I told him we didn't have any money at this stage. We wanted to get the script going and we couldn't really move until we had a script. And I asked him what was a minimum dollar amount that he would accept to just start, to help us get going. And he said a figure, and I just figured, like the way things were going, that okay, we just have to somehow get it. We didn't know how we'd get the money, but we would just, everything was happening so amazingly that as long as, my purpose was to go to Jamaica, to get him to agree to be on board. And to just see if we could get him something manageable, to really get the terms of which he would start writing for us, you know, understanding that we would never be able to raise his proper deserved fee. But was there an amount that he would be happy for us to start with? And then it was just a case. But this is why I got emotional the first time we met. Because you see, that in itself, the minute you say you have Trevor Rohn involved now, and we have Rick, but especially Trevor Rohn, because more people in the industry had seen The Harder They Come. That was for distributors, that was a classic. Many distributors have said, I remember in the 70s when The Harder They come out, I was in New York, I remember seeing The Harder They Come. You know, not everybody would have seen Dancehall Queen, but they would have seen The Harder They Come, people who were into film. So to be able to confidently say, I've got Trevor Rohn to write this script, starts to open doors. You know, people start to take you a little bit more seriously. You know, and his last words to me, that meeting. Oh, dear, you're such a dreamer, but I love you. Such a dreamer. I don't think he believed that we would ever raise the money. I don't think he believed it. But I think he just was flattered that we'd come all the way to Jamaica to look for him, to try and get him on board. So I thought, I don't think he actually thought, oh, they'll actually raise the money. At the same time, while I was in Kingston, I wanted to meet, we were inquiring about the Marleys. The line producer, who the director had suggested, I don't know if he suggested I talked, or his friend happened to be Odessa Cliff, who was Jimmy Cliff's daughter. Jimmy Cliff was the star of The Harder They Come. Odessa Cliff was his daughter. She had a good relationship with the Marleys. They're like, all of them Marley. So I got to speak to her, and we were suggesting which Marley might have acting potential, and she was the one that said, well, Kamani's just done a film. He's done a film called Shotters. I said, of all the Marleys, that's the one you need. He was the right age, 24, about 24-ish. And we said, how do we get hold of him?
And she just picked up the phone and called him?
No, she told us who his manager was. His manager was John Baker. How do we find his manager? She said he's with G Street Records or whatever. And basically, we would need to go through his manager. But she gave me all the details that I needed to contact his manager. So it was so productive. I'd now got Trevor Rowe, who thought I was a dreamer. I'd at least got the contact for Kimani's. So all this wish list looked like this is going to happen. So I felt I went back to London really in a positive, mission accomplished. Got Trevor Rowe on board, we got a contact to Amali. Even better, he's done a film. It won't be his first film. At least we won't have to say he's never acted before. So that was that journey.
He comes off wonderfully in the film.
He does. And that's not just all the excitement. The next excitement was getting to Kimani. It's our next excitement. This was so exciting. This little journey we were on. We do manage to raise the money to pay Trevor, and that was interesting. Oh, well, we'll get to Trevor next. Next thing is, Yvonne was really good. I think it was Yvonne that actually did all the phoning round to get in contact with Kimani's manager. And, well, it was actually his record producer we got in contact with first of all, and then I got to understand all his people. Let's just call it Kimani's people.
Okay.
So that was interesting because there was a bit of misunderstanding, there was a bit of confusion. You see, we get in contact with his people, his manager, and we tell him what the story is. This is a story about a girl from the who's a Christian. She falls in love with a Rastafarian. So he said, "Oh, so you've heard the album?" I said, "What album?" Kimani's album, The Journey. And we're like, what about The Journey? The song, she fell in love with a Rastaman. They thought that we wanted him because we'd been inspired by the song that he had already written about a girl, Christian girl who falls in love with a Rastaman. Well, we knew he was going to love the script because he clearly identified with the storyline because he'd written a song about it. So he's immediately like, yeah, he said, I'm going to be in London. So we can meet and we can talk. And Kimani, we didn't meet Kimani there, we just met with him. Had a meeting in London. And we explained where we were at, what we had, and he gave us the song. And we're like, whoa, this is kind of like the story. Maybe we're going to use this as the theme tune. We can certainly use it as publicity material. So that was bizarre as well. So now we have our list, and we have all of these people now on board.
All right.
So we now have to go back. We do raise our money with the help of now having all of these people on board. We can get the initial seed money. I
imagine getting this initial seed money was probably one of the, setbacks at first.
Well, once we knew the amount, and it was what I would call a reasonable amount. But once we've got an amount that we were looking for, we knew that was the target. But we now had, the project was looking real. We had a director. We could now say it is going to star this person. It is going to star this person. It is. In fact, the girl from Dancehall Queen we could get because Rick was the director of Dancehall Queen. So he was able to lead us to Shireen's manager as well. So all those people that we wanted to have that were a dream before were now becoming a reality. And I have to say Trevor Rowe was a big pull, because he would of all those names, I mean, he would have the biggest weight. Gotcha. People, the soundtrack to The Harder They Come was once voted in England the best film score soundtrack for the 20th century.
Whoa.
Well, when the film came out, all those songs were just a huge hit. The Harder They Come, Many More Rivers to Cross. It's among, I don't know what's the most covered, but it's one of the most covered numbers. Many More Rivers to Cross is one of the most covered numbers ever. Everybody has done a cover of Many More Rivers to Cross. I mean, it was a huge Jimmy Cliff. It made a star out of Jimmy Cliff overnight. So we get the money, so this is the joke. So we ring up Trevor, this is around Christmas time now. And we say, Trevor, we've got your money! Do you mind working over Christmas? And I think he probably just jumped out of it. Oh, my goodness, these people are serious. They're a bit nutty, but they're serious. And he agreed. He said, yes, great. So we both of us this time. This time Yvonne and I come over. And Kimani's manager now is going to be in Jamaica because his studio, although we met him in London, and he was an English guy, but he lived in Jamaica. His studio was in Jamaica. So he was going to be there. Trevor was going to be there. It was possible Kimani would be there over that Christmas. It was the millennium. I can tell you exactly when it was. It was going into so this is 1999 going into 2000. Because I was with Rick, the director came over as well. Because I remember spending 2000 New Year's Eve with Rick, the director, on Treasure Beach, with Perry Hensel, who was the director of The Harder They Come, listening to Toots and the Maytals.
Wow.
Yeah, it was an awesome millennium. I can't forget that. So that is definitely this is the Christmas of 1999 going into. So perhaps we need to put things back. When I actually met Rick at the actual the auction, probably was
the charity.
90.
The arts thing.
Might have been 98,
Okay.
97 or 98. Yeah. So I must have met Yvonne earlier as well. So I think it was 1999 when, at the beginning, when we decided to really try and get things going. So yeah, it was really exciting year for us. Very, very exciting. And Trevor we started brainstorming, we started writing. In fact, I think when we said that we were coming over, maybe he'd written some bits.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you. I think he's had some ideas. I do remember a lot of sitting on beaches. I remember, there was a bit of sitting on beaches and having nice discussions about storylines.
That's probably the best development meeting I've ever heard of. Just to sit on a Jamaican beach, drinking wine or Mai Tais, or what was it?
Probably wine, rum. It was nice, and everything was convenient. We were doing a Jamaican story, and we happened to be working with a lot of Jamaicans. And in fact, I think that was the time we kind of officially met and auditioned Shireen, sort of officially. I think, you see, the easiest thing is none of these people necessarily live in Jamaica. Kaman doesn't live in Jamaica, he lives in Miami. Shireen doesn't live in Jamaica, she lives in Philadelphia. But Jamaica's their hometown, and it was Christmas time. So most of them were happy, or maybe were planning to be going back to Jamaica. It was the millennium, so a lot of them were planning to be on the island, to be with family, even though it's not their regular homes, around the Christmas time. So we seemed to be able to get everybody. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
All the stars were pointing in our right.
So Trevor writes the script, and then where do you go from there?
We And let's tell you this. When I first met Yvonne and we had that first production meeting, we really believed we'd have it all done in a year. We would go to train, we'd do that, the script would dead, it would be filmed. We really were that naive. So we thought, oh, well, a year later, you know. I didn't know when I said yes, I was sort of signing up for 5 years of my life. The next real major thing was Cannes, the Cannes Film Festival.
Thank you.
And true to form, everything that happened on this first leg was a journey, really. You should make a film about this, really. Yvonne and I trying to get our film off the ground. I mean, even Cannes was extraordinary.
You told me this. This was Cannes of 2000 then. Cannes Film Festival 2000.
Yeah, I think it was that one.
And so you arrive, and the first thing is you hop in a taxi with a Swedish driver.
German.
Oh, German.
Yeah, that's right. We were not planning to go to Cannes at all. Prior to that, we had actually had an offer now of the film in a very early stage by a sales agent. We had approached people who had been interested in Dunks or Queen that we thought would be Jamaican friendly, would understand about marketing that material. And so one company that we'd earmarked, we'd gone to, we're all one company people actually. We usually have one person on the list. Right, what's your list? Oh, right, one name for each, that's the list.
One name, one company, one love.
One love. So we'd earmarked that person. We usually went for the one we thought would be most logical. And they had expressed an interest, and we thought that they were going to take it and market it at Cannes and everything, get some pre-sales for us. But then about a couple of weeks before, we were contacted to say, we haven't actually got a contract with you guys, and we need to sign a contract before we put our efforts in. And they sent us a draft contract, which was actually not a bad contract. But because we were not experienced at that time, we were scared by this contract, which probably said, you know, we will take exclusive rights for the world, to market to the world. And it just seemed huge, you know, it seemed a huge sign-off. But it was the sales agent at this point, which actually wouldn't have been a bad thing. They would have just said, we're going to market it to agents around the world. So I think we could have signed the contract. But you know, when you're new and you're just a little bit, and you don't have a lot of advisors or whatever, you're just a bit wary, you know. It just seemed a bit daunting.
I've been involved in a lot of, like, you know, productions like that where early on we get a strong bite and then we look over it with a fine-tooth comb and we're paranoid about everything because we don't know these people, we don't know the industry as well, we're not sure if we can trust them, that kind of thing.
There you go.
Yeah.
And but I think later on, when we had more people working with us, more experienced people working with us, you know, I think they said to us, you probably could have signed that contract. It wasn't a bad contract, but you learn through experience. And you know, the decision was made. You know, Yvonne said, listen, why don't we try and do it ourselves? Maybe we could do it ourselves. Now, Yvonne speaks several languages. She's a very talented linguist. And so we figured with Spanish, she could go, that would be all the South American people, she could probably make herself understood. She had English, she had French. Perhaps, you know, we could try. And then if it didn't work, we could always go back to the sales agent and see what would happen. Problem was, we'd now left it late, so we decided we want to go to Cannes. We've never been before, and all the hotels and everything are booked up. And she had remembered a place she used to stay when she worked in TV. She used to work for the BBC in television. She was a director for the BBC. So she remembered there was a place she used to go to MIPCOM. And so we tried there, and the rooms were full. And the owner sort of said, oh, maybe I can get you an apartment. So he came back, an apartment. We were still in francs then, we weren't in the euro. Can't remember how many francs, like 2,000 francs and that. We were like, no way, we can't afford that. They then had another one. I have another apartment, like 200. Okay, maybe we could do the 200. It would be small. Yvonne and I would be sharing a room, a little studio, but we didn't mind. We just needed somewhere safe to come back to. So that was really great. So this is how the story that you remember, the next extraordinary story. We go to pick up the laundry. We arrive in Cannes. And I think the first day, you know what's interesting? This is a year on, and I'm actually called to do the show. You remember that first theatre piece?
Yes.
I'm actually, they're doing, they do another production of it, and they asked me back to do it a second time to go on tour with it. So, in fact, the night before, I couldn't fly with Yvonne because the Saturday I had to do a production, my final production. Can't remember where it was. I think it was Brighton that I would have to go. So I would be coming in. Yvonne was going to go in a couple of days before me, and I would be coming in on the Sunday after the show again. So Yvonne is going to stay with a friend of hers before, and then we'll get the hotel together. I think maybe the Monday or whatever I was going to come in. So the first thing was the badges. We didn't realise we needed all these badges and everything, and we thought we weren't going to be able to get through because we hadn't got accreditation. We didn't know how we were going to get accreditation because we didn't know about that. But Yvonne had been there the day before, and somehow, partly because she speaks French very, very well and could, converse very well with the organisers, she managed to get us accreditation on the spot there, get us there without having to pay. And she managed to do it in such a way that when I came, I would be on her application, so I just literally didn't have to queue. She had a queue to get her badge, get her photograph, she had a queue for hours. When I went, it would all be prepared. We then go to pick up the laundry, and it's the German guy, and he says, so you have a movie. What is this movie? And they always say in Cannes, everybody's pitching to everybody. So we tell him the story. We pitch we're sitting in the back of the car, and we've got the black big liners with the duvet, and all the sheets that we're carrying over to the hotel. They're all sitting on our laps, and he's driving over in his car. And we tell him, and immediately he said, I think I know somebody who really likes this project. They are Norwegian. And I was like, Norwegians? Has he heard this project? This project is set in Jamaica. I mean, we're Norwegians. Well, they're Norwegian. I was like, bizarre, we thought. But we knew nobody. We had no meetings. We were thrilled. But he said, I make meeting for you, yeah? And we were like, yeah, make meeting for us, because we did not know anybody. We didn't have any meetings. We were so disorganized, we barely got a room when we arrived, let alone a meeting. All we had was passion and enthusiasm, and you know what? We didn't even have business cards. We had those first years. We had forgotten to get business cards. And I remember us on the plane. And there are some people to this day that say to us they still have those business cards we had. I had some a black marker, and a white, what you call whiteout, like pen, one of those whiteout pens.
Yes, yeah.
And we had some blank cards we were cutting up, and I had some old business cards. We got the black pen, and and then we put our company in the white marker to make it look designer. Oh my God, they were so homemade. I mean, we didn't even have printed cards. Yes. Oh my goodness. I wonder if I've got one of them, at least one. I should just frame one. The homemade.
Put it up on your Facebook profile.
The homemade. I don't even think Facebook could really appreciate the homemade. I mean, you really have to see this card to appreciate the real homemade quality of it. I mean, I don't even have fancy writing. It's not as if I've done calligraphy and our company at that time was called Montego Films. We formed One Love Films later. So the company at that point was Montego Films. Montego Films. So we were so happy to get this meeting because it would get the ball rolling. We'd have something to do, and it was terribly exciting. And everything was going well for us. This apartment that he had managed to get that we could barely afford, but was right on the Rue d'Antibes. I mean, it was right. We could walk to we were so well located. And so we are armed. This is what, before our preparation, we go with a little business plan. With the synopsis, our marketing strategy, and whatever, we have that. And we had got a friend. I mean, honestly, Chichi, we didn't believe in spending what we didn't have. We had seen all these glossy brochures that were very nice, with very professional. We were just so poor. I mean, our business plan was black and white because we couldn't afford the printing costs for colour. So everything was going to be black and white. We had a friend on his Apple laptop put the pictures in. We didn't have a picture of Kimani and Shireen. We had our holiday snaps of them. So we did some photoshopping, putting them together, looking like they were a couple. Wow. By that time they hadn't even met properly, probably, but we just photoshopped them together. These are our stars, look at them. But what we did have, which was a real coup, is John Baker, one of Kimani's managers, had given us a copy of his CD. And oh my goodness, we were pitching it, and then we were saying, would you like to hear the CD? And everybody was like, she fell in love with a Rasta man, and everybody was like, oh, and they just loved this track.
Oh my.
And they must have thought we were so organized that we'd managed to get a soundtrack before we had, finished the script. They just thought, this illusion, look at these two, they've got a soundtrack, they've got the Marley, they've got these. And the truth was that Kimani had already written the song, and the album was out already. So, but it was just, for them, it was like, I like this. Yeah. This is all looking good. I'm getting a feel. I love the music. I'm loving this package already. I'm loving this package.
As sales agents tend to say.
As sales agents tend to say, and that was our big pitch. We pitched it's Romeo and Juliet set in Jamaica, and would you like to hear them? We put the CD on. Have you got a CD player? And everybody would love the track. She went, I love. And especially when we saw the sales agent, she wanted to keep it. Oh my goodness, she played it all day long. Blaring. That day it was exciting. She brought a boat. Rather than having, you've been to Cannes before, so you know that all the sales agents and distributors are in the Riviera. You know all about that. But this particular year, our sales agent.
Now this is Björk?
Yeah, she owns her own boat, so she'd sailed it down from Norway, and that was going to be her office. For us, it was great. We were like, oh, we're having meetings on a boat. That was even better than going to the Riviera. We felt really grand because we were like, come on the boat. We were invited to lunches on the boat, and then they keep playing the song. I remember one day we were sitting on the boat, blaring the song, and Sarah Ferguson, Duchess of York, was on the boat next door, we were playing this track. I mean, it was getting people excited. People could picture the song. They were just buying into it. They were just buying into, we're going to have reggae music, we're going to have, it's going to be in Jamaica. She'd say, we all go to Jamaica. We go to Jamaica, yeah. Now have a reggae party on the beach. It was going down really, really well for development of the project. I mean, Trevor hadn't finished the script yet.
Oh wow!
But we just kept telling them, yeah, it's on its way. By that time, they were buying into everything else. And then after that, everything takes its toll. What I've told you there is the key things, the early part. Once you've got those people on board and you've got a sales agent in place, and then it's all going through the motions. We still had to raise the budget. The budget was going to be. Well, initially the budget was actually, we weren't initially going to film on 35 mil, we were going to film digitally, and I think we had a $500,000 budget at that time. But I think as the script developed and everybody saw the quality of the script, they wanted to go higher, and we saw the possibilities of maybe shooting 35 mil. People really thinking about the locations, getting more financiers involved. They were kind of happier to maybe go for the 3 million, but we would still need to raise that money, and there would be more trips to Cannes, probably not as exciting as that as our first year.
That's all, folks. Many thanks to my guest, Shelaagh Ferrell, for a terrific dinner. Check her out at www.shelaagferrell.com. You can also find out more about One Love and the music of Kamani Marley by visiting the links for this episode on our website. Our banner image this week is of Shelaagh by myself. Our music this week is Le Charleston by French artist Andrea Lindsay. Please check out our music and buy it on iTunes. We're starting to grow our Producers Lounge community, so if you'd like to submit either jazz music or banner photos for an episode, post a link on our Facebook page. You can like us on Facebook at facebook.com/theproducerslounge. Remember, you show your support for films by not downloading them, you show your support on Hulu by clicking on the commercials, and you show your support for podcasts by liking and commenting. And you can always check out our website, www.theproducersloungepodcast.com. Thank you again. I'm your host, Richard Tucci. Join us next week for more cocktails and questions. And until then, keep producing dreams.